I think we got everybody we need on go here, so we'll start out with call to order. And is there any additions to the agenda? Oh, where's Lloyd? Sorry. Just hang on a second here. Okay, do we have any additions to the agenda? Lloyd, you didn't want to add under public works special projects?
You mean the report that the updated? Oh, yeah, we just as a discussion item, just that it comes.
We'll just put it under. Let's put it under A12.
Okay.
And I have one to go under, unless it's gone here. Is that what we want to talk about? The assessment for 2020 taxes? Is that, Mike? That's what the one that I talked about the other day about extending that deadline? Okay. Good enough. I need a motion to accept the agenda as amended. George? All against? Okay, adoption of the minutes. We don't have any of them today. Delegations and presentations. We don't have any of them today. So we will get into Public Works A1 roadside cleanup.
No.
Testing.
Yep.
Sorry, guys. I could hear, but I guess I couldn't talk. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Roadside cleanup. This is an item that we've had on the agenda in past years where the county has involved some different community services to do cleanup of different roadways. So we're coming to you a little late with it here. We have had a number of requests from service groups to do some cleanup. So I brought this forward from you. It's similar to ones that we've used in the past, and we've named these roads in the divisions here. So I open it for discussion, for adding or deleting, and request for how you'd like to proceed with this.
Well, I think we should carry on with it. Gives the club some money and cleans up some messes. Lauren?
I would make the motion that we proceed with the roadside cleanup as we've done in the past.
Okay. Lloyd?
Is it possible to add one more road?
Absolutely.
The one I'm thinking of is Range Road 74 north of Highway 43. It's about, it's actually a localized issue. There was a stolen vehicle burnt on the side of the road, and we actually talked to the RCMP about cleaning it up. Since it was burnt, it appears to have become a dump. So that's the location I was looking at.
What is that? Something our public works should be doing though?
It could be, or the public works, or it could fit under this too. I don't know. Public works would probably be easier.
Well, then it depends on, I don't know what's left out there. Like, could the kids lift that stuff?
You don't?
I think they could, but Public Works would probably be the more appropriate one to utilize.
Yeah, I would agree. If it's large debris, we can look after that in Public Works because we have the resources to do so. This is more for small garbage collection and things like that.
Steve?
Yes, the road going to our to the trans.
No, we could, and then you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
There we go.
Yeah, in regards to the transfer station to the Chair Hill, it's not on this list, and I'm just wondering why it wasn't.
Because the council never asked for it to be put on.
We can certainly add for it to be put in here.
Thank you. We have a 4-H club that would gladly participate.
Excellent.
Okay, with all them questions, we do have a motion on the floor to continue with the roads added to the list. So if that's, can you add that to your motion? Add those roads. Okay, all against? All right, carried.
Thank you.
Okay, special projects. I think, Greg, you sent out a list the other day on a Friday or whatever. It was everything that was going on. It was really good. And I think Lloyd was just thinking if we could get one from Joel and Brian just regarding all the big culverts and the stuff in the slide in San Guido and different things like that. So we have, when people are questioning us, especially those at the coffee shop, they got some good answers. So I think we're just looking for them for once, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I think once every 2 weeks, or even once a month, as long as there's something that explains what's been going on, like we'll just say 590, for example, or the slide in San Guido tender processing has been done or whatever, just so that we have something to tell people rather than, yeah, it's going to be done. So your report was excellent. It's actually, I thought, really, really good.
And like I said, all of administration can blame that on Mike Martin for doing such a good job in his financial report the other day that now everybody's expected to do one. But in that same note, when we bring that up, when we talk about special projects, I actually wouldn't mind seeing one from Trista from your side either, like one from Donna and one from regarding our policing, our bylaw guys, what they're doing, because we're not sure what they're doing.
So I have spoken with all of my department managers about doing a quarterly report, so we'll just bump it up a little bit and get you something sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sounds good.
I can give you a verbal update on where some of these projects are at and what we're doing with them if council wants to hear them today.
Sure.
Sure.
But
Okay,
do we,
this-
just before you, Joe, before you start, do we need a motion on that or for administration to do it, or are you just going to do it? Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, the slide in San Guido, I have met with Fortis yesterday. We have to put some underground power in because we're removing that 3-phase line that is behind those trailers. I'm just getting a survey of the property lines so we know where to stub in. Fortis is paying for all of the underground that they're supplying. All we have to do is pay for the conduit and install it and tie the 2 trailers that are there now into power. So that'll all be done through the project. We have a meeting, Brian and I and Greg, Mike, tomorrow with Wood over getting this thing out to tender or where they're at with the sheet piles that we're going to be putting in. So hopefully by next week that'll be out and tendered. 590, I just received the new updated drawings this morning or yesterday from MPE. I've just asked for an update on their Class D estimates. because it should be a lot less because we stayed with a standard 8-meter road top. So I guess that's a discussion now that we need to have with you guys on where we want to go with this. Do we want to go to full-fledged tender for this project, or is there other options that we could look at? Paddle Dam, water is all up and running, chlorination system's in, the road has been, the front sites are pretty much ready for use. I got a little bit of cleanup that has to be done on some of those sites, and then the caretaker sounds like they want to move in today, maybe tomorrow, and so that's coming along. And of course, working with the phase A of the Sandy Beach to Onaway line. That project, some accounts will be filled in tomorrow on it at our meeting, but we're surveying was completed yesterday of our routing. They're just working on the final hydraulics. We're probably going to have to put a lift station in part way. So we're looking at putting that just north of subdivision there, be Aspen Hills, on that reserve land there. So there'll be a booster station there, a lift station there, which then will accommodate for future for Hillview Estates and Aspen Hills. They can tie right in with the low pressure right into that lift station. So that's moving forward. Timelines are looking good on that. Right now, we look at possibly by the end of August as planned to have our tenders out and back and ready for construction. We're going to do it in 2 phases. The line will be 1 phase, and then the lift stations and SRS unit up at Sandy Beach will be the second tender. We are pre-qualifying for all of our underground, so that's going to hopefully be going out in the next couple weeks to pre-qualify for this project. Yeah, other than that, the culverts are done out west that I had responsibility for. The 3 center lines have all been replaced and rip-wrapped and look really good. So Brian can maybe add a few more things. The clinic, we're waiting on a drawing for that one to come back. The doctor and that had a few changes to it. They wanted a few changes, so we're just waiting for that drawing to come back. Then we can get it ready to go out for tender for the expansion there.
We also had a road tour with Greg and Mike and Joe, and we've done a brief summary for it. We're going to have a detailed kind of summary for you as council every month to look at kind of the progression. It'll be part of the summary that we could even put into the capital program that Joe is talking about right now. We could just do a monthly report for you as well and include all the roads that are being worked on as well too. So we could weave that into one document for all of you as council if you'd like.
I think that'd be good.
Joe touched on the Onaway Regional Medical Clinic. We're just waiting for feedback from the doctor there, from Dr. And Phase B, Joe, you want to talk about that? You're taking that to award at the Darwell meeting tomorrow as well too?
Correct. That'll be there for award, along with the Ross Haven project for award. To move forward, and we can't do anything with Phase B as far as engineering, but we can award at this time until we have funding in place.
And the lagoon mapping survey too, Joe, you want to touch on that as well?
Yeah,
with that
we're just waiting on. We made a few changes to it. So I want pricing. I don't want to go out twice for this project. I want pricing for what it's going to cost to map all the lagoons. So hopefully by the end of the week, this week, that'll be out. Brian had to make a few changes to it. Yeah, that's
and
moving forward.
We're also working on the RFQ for contracted grader operations. I know, Joe, you'd asked about that, Blakeman. So we're working on that as well too.
Okay. Get that RFP out for those lagoons stuff. You're gonna run out of time.
Yes, I know that.
Where are we sitting with Tri Village? Is that something that we'll talk? Is that on our agenda tomorrow?
We,
Are they still
Yeah,
dodging us like a?
yeah, I haven't seen anything from them.
Okay. Well, I think then just to
We'll
hell with
discuss.
Dennis Evans and set up a meeting with them,
Okay.
with the three mayors.
Okay.
And on that same note, Lauren, when we're talking about special projects, Wild Water, Joe set up a meeting with, get Cindy to set up a meeting with you and me and Kevin, Andrew, and your neighbor. Randy Lovitz, that's it. Because we have a Alberta Beach counselor that sits on Wild Water who doesn't think that Randy Lovitz's letter's high. He's not high enough up the totem pole to write a letter. Anyway,
On that note, Lauren, John Van Duesberg, myself, and Mike Y will be having a meeting. We got to sort out that site up there on who, if it's going to be a lease agreement or what's going to go on with that, where the truck fill's going to be at.
And which, that's at Sandy Beach, Joel?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get that all in place because we may want a service for the lift station there and SRS unit that we're going to put in place there. And
we have,
just,
yeah, that's the Alex Gucci property.
yes,
And, yeah, that's,
we just got to make sure we have enough land. I
yeah,
know
because
they're
right now
allowed-
it's only 2 acres, so we may need 3.
That's right. So we got to get that into discussions right now.
Okay.
So that'll probably happen next week by phone call, I believe, with John Van Duesberg. Do you want to be involved in that?
I probably have to line it up with Alex because they don't, we have a landman, but he never answers their phone. So it's, I know Alex because I know his dad really well.
Okay.
But, he's always phoned me and I stay out of the land part of it, but I just don't make the connection. I'm not.
We just
involved.
want to make sure we have enough land and what the lease agreement's going to be with Wild, because who's going to own the land? We're going to have 2 different, we got Darwell Lagoon
Commissions,
Commission, 2 different commissions sitting on the same property. So we just got to sort that out.
so that means yes, he wants to be on the call.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
We'll just simplify that. And Matt, can we put? Could we just have us both commissions on the title?
I don't know
I
about
believe the direction we had approved previously was where it comes to land, the county wants to be the owner of it.
that.
That was the direction that we received when it came to several other truck fills. That way, if we need to expand for our resources, that we have the ability to without getting consent from the commissions.
Currently, Wild owns all the truck fills, and that's because under the grant program, that's how Water for Life works. We have to declare the commission is an eligible cost, so that eligibility on cost pays for it. If the county wants to own it, well then the county can own it, and there is no grant money, so you'll pay full cost of market value or whatever it is. So right now, it's totally eligible under the Wild cost. So and it's totally covered, the land, but it would be under the commission's name. If the county wants to go ahead and enter into,
Well, I don't think let's not get into one of them.
No.
That wasn't the question.
okay,
So you can have multiple commissions or entities on the title, yes, in regards to that, if that's the direction you do want to go.
Because that's the problem is 2 commissions. Lloyd?
Good report, Joe, and I don't want to belabor the reporting process, but I find it really valuable And I would like to see it being an expected method of operation for departments. Just gives us a little bit more idea or information to hang our hats on. Like, it's actually concrete information, and I think we look. Everybody looks a lot better when we have this information available. But I don't want to belabor the point. It's just my opinion.
Okay, well, any questions for Joe and Brian or Greg or? Yeah, can I get a motion to accept all that for information? Ross? Against? Okay. Okay, community services. Sangodo Sundial Stucco project.
So the Sangodo and District Community Development Council has requested permission to go into the sundial right at the entrance into Sangodo and re-stucco. Because it is owned by the county, they are simply asking for permission to do that. There is no cost to the county. They are funding it themselves and through grant programs. The recommendation is to approve.
Well, I'm fine with that. Steve? Okay. Oh, against? Happy Sundial Stucco. You're gonna have a stucco bee?
We're gonna have a pig roast.
Okay, letter of support, Rich Valley Ag Society.
This is a request to ratify the provision of a letter that's already been given out. Just due to timelines, the Rich Valley Ag Society is applying for several different grants for programs coming up, including new roof, gate signs, new fences around the ball diamonds, and then some basic maintenance, so some operational costs as well. The letter is attached, and again, just because of the deadlines for the grant applications, it was provided, so it's a ratification of that.
Okay, George moves to ratify that. Okay, against? Perfect. COVID-19 Lake St. Anne County relaunch. Is that Mike and Carol? Trista, Mike and Carol, Trista, Carol, Trista. Good all right now.
Good morning,
Carol
I'm on. It's
is
Carol.
going to attempt to, there she is.
Yeah.
Hello, Carol.
Good morning. So what's before you today is a serious conversation with regards to relaunching our customer services portion of county operations. So as an information piece, we've been working deeply in the background trying to prepare for the time when we reopen our doors. You know that on March 17th, Alberta declared a public health emergency. That was in direct response to the global pandemic as of March 11th, 2020. We took the steps at that point in time to inform everybody of the seriousness of a global pandemic and what that meant. And so we fired up our emergency management advisory and team to get ready to deal with how we would manage if anybody got sick, how we would manage business continuity if we lost a bunch of people. And the eventuality came to an all-staff mandatory meeting for those who are able to attend to tell them about the symptoms, steps that they should take, expectations on cleaning and sanitizing. And then on March 12th, I presented to County Council with regards to basically the same thing. This is what this virus is. This is why it's a pandemic. Here are the steps that we're going to have to take. And at that point, we were receiving information basically on an hour, almost minute by minute basis. The influx of information was tremendous. So managing all of that to make sure that we were doing all of the right things to hopefully prevent any kind of exposure by our staff and exposure potentially out there in the public for people coming in or us dealing with the public out there. Throughout the day on the 16th of March, it became far more apparent that this was going to affect businesses in a more serious way, and a neighboring municipality ended up closing their office doors to the public because they had a potential exposure. The declaration of state of public health emergency on the 17th, along with this office closure of a neighboring municipality, resulted in our own decision to close the office to the public. And then also work to have as many people as possible work remotely from home, arranging for equipment, papers, materials, whatever they might need, files in order to do their work consistently, effectively, efficiently, and appropriately from either home or another base, but outside of this office. We developed a policy, and that was the work from home policy number 03060-024. We created safe work practices and hazard assessments to make sure that the safety and health of every employee was taken care of when they were working outside of the office environment, including all of our field staff. There was a big expectation from those who would be working remotely outside of the office and what they needed to do to ensure that they were meeting the expectations. We engaged our after hours call center in taking over the phone calls on a daily basis and then responding with email to senior administration, to then the appropriate departments to be handled effectively and as efficiently as possible. Business continuity was only second because we had to be so very conscientious of the health and safety of all of our workers. But it became quite apparent that we needed to understand what we had to do to ensure business continuity for the operations of the county, because we, of course, serve the ratepayer of the county. And how do we do that when we're not operating under normal circumstances? What were critical tasks? What were essential tasks? And what were necessary tasks? And how could we manage each and every one of those? This was a great exercise for Lac Ste. Anne County to take on. The departments jumped to the opportunity to say, this is what we do, this is how we're going to do it. And we put together a couple of very good working documents that we effectively changed as we needed and as we came upon things that we kind of either forgot or they don't come up often enough to realize that we needed to put them into the plan as well. Now we are into relaunch phases in accordance with the Government of Alberta, Alberta Health Services, and the Chief Medical Officer of Health. What are the safe things to do? How do we do this? Phase 1 happened. We are moving into now phase 2, and the province at this point in time has determined that phase 2 relaunch for sure would happen by June 19th unless they saw an increase in cases, an increase or a rise in the numbers and the seriousness, and the ICU units and the hospitals were being inundated. That would determine if that date worked or not. There's also been talk about early phasing of other pieces that would happen on that 19th of June that could happen earlier given the success stories that are out there. So when we looked at June 19th, that's a Friday, internal conversations here occurred that said Friday is not a perfect day to relaunch, but rather the Monday. And in general conversation with a ton of municipalities out there, they're all looking at, they've either sort of kind of opened or they're all looking at that June 22nd. And there are more and more who are looking at even later dates than that as they work towards trying to figure out how to do this as best possible to reduce exposure and live with COVID-19 as we are going to have to for the next 12 to 18 months. So I have developed a PowerPoint for Council to have a look at, and I believe it's up on the screens now as you see. And as we work through it, I'll just have either Mike or Trista flip the pages so that you can see what kind of plans we have talked about putting into place. So Trista and I worked this. Mike has had a good review of this and added some things. And now it's time for Council to have a look and hear what your thoughts are as well. So your cover page is, of course, very much a draft plan on relaunching Lac Ste. Anne County. So moving to the next slide. We needed to figure out a solid plan that's written down, that's been talked about, and engaging all of our employees who are involved in each of the pieces as we move forward to open to the public and allow staff to come back into the office on a more regular basis, confirming their safety, confirming communication, and that reintegration while welcoming the public back. What we are hearing from every teleconference, every town hall, every Teams meeting, every go-to meeting, every Zoom meeting is that communication is a most important piece on letting our public know and our staff know and even our neighboring partners know what we are doing and how we're going to do it. In the next slide, getting ready. So we ensured that the health and safety of our employees had to be in accordance with those public health orders that are out there. And it's not just one, it's multiples, and they expand every time restrictions are lifted or are added. So we had to comply with all of those, as well as, of course, that overarching piece, which is occupational health and safety. So safe work practices, hazard assessments, and the gaining of personal protective equipment that we didn't often use in a lot of the normal operations that we did. So we have accessed that. I have a pretty good stores. Our essential services, so utilities, fire services, and our enforcement services have what they need in order to be safe out there when they are dealing with the public. And as we involve more and more of our staff dealing with the public, I have the stuff that they're going to need in order to do that safely. We've worked out cleaning and sanitizing requirements in accordance with those public health orders, getting the right product, outlining how to do it and how to do it right and effectively to ensure that we don't leave surfaces that are going to be open to the transfer of the virus itself. We've minimized the number of staff inside the building at any one time, and throughout these past 3 months, there are times when it's as little as 10 to 15 people, and when it jumps up past 20, those of us in the building are going, ooh, that's a lot of people in the building. So there's a feel for making sure we have enough physical distancing, making sure that everything we touch we wipe down, making sure that not too many people congregate in areas. And so as we add people in, this has to be a conscientious effort that all of us make when we see our neighbors coming through the hallways or a part of meetings and things like that. Assigning maximum capacity in those shared spaces to ensure that we can maintain a physical distancing of the 2 meters or 6 feet as we often refer to, or for that matter, a moose length. If you walk around the building right now, we have assigned to all of our boardrooms the maximum capacity, and we've removed chairs to ensure that we don't overstretch that, because unless we're wearing the masks and we're doing all the other things, the potential for exposure remains. COVID's not going away. We also are in the process of completing the finalized document of a screening questionnaire and a directive that goes along with it, helping people understand why we would ask these questions, what the process is, and the possible outcome if somebody isn't feeling well, and the prevention that it entails to ensure we don't expose staff to, or even the public to, a potential exposure and outbreak. So the screening questionnaire is something that came from Alberta Health Services. They started using it internally with their essential staff. The majority of municipalities out there are utilizing that questionnaire and versions of it. So that is something that we will put in play. The other piece that goes with this screening questionnaire is the fact that we have the responsibility as a business operation to ensure that if there is a case or even an outbreak, that we can provide the tracing details to Alberta Health Services to find out who else might be exposed and provide the protection and do all of the right things to prevent any further spread. So it's a very multi-purpose document. We move through to slide 4, which is the return of customer service. What we have to remember is that the protection of our front-end staff is paramount. So we have installed sneeze guards. If you walked around the building when you came in, counselors, you will have seen them. They aren't complete. The first installation, it became apparent that misunderstandings, miscommunications occurred. So we're closing off some pieces, and we're also extending a piece of it for further protection of our 2 receptionists up front. We're designating physical distancing requirements. So I'm sure that you have all been out to many businesses where there are the decals on the floor with 2 feet prints, and there are actually some that are using caution wasp's nest ahead and ladders that say 6 feet, or red tape on the floor, or other kinds of barriers that say stop here, wait until the other line moves forward before you move forward, keeping that physical distance of 6 feet. Those pieces are in. The next pieces that we have, we're still waiting for some arrivals. So we talked about how do we let people in and out of the building. And of course, we have a great front main entrance door. And we thought maybe we could even use a side exit as a possible egress to prevent cross contamination, people going in and out. But further review of using that egress door tells us it's really not the best if we have patrons who are infirm, or the weather is really inclement. Making them walk all the way around that front end of the building back to where they may have parked doesn't seem like the right thing to do. So we are going to designate an in and out door so that those going in use one and they can't come in contact with someone who is going out. Crowd control barriers are on order, and that's to designate you go this way and you don't go that way, and helping our patrons understand this is where we need you to be for your safety and for the safety of the other patrons and our staff. We are in the process of moving the chairs from the front entrance. The purpose behind that, and again, this is something that the majority of municipalities are doing, is that every time somebody touches a piece of furniture, it then must be sanitized for the next person. So we are removing all of those. We will put in one of the chairs from the county council chambers that has just the back and the seat, no arms, for the ease of sanitizing by our front end staff every time that chair gets used by our patrons. The other step we are going to take is closing the washroom facilities in the front, except for, of course, emergencies. The piece here that we need to remember is we do not have cleaning staff full-time in the building, and the sanitizing that would have to take place regularly is something that we at this point in time cannot accommodate. It's important for you to understand that the majority of municipalities as well have made that decision. Where there is a public available restroom, they are closing the access to that. Finally, in that front foyer area, it's limiting the access of a patron coming into the building. So we took a tape measure out, we scored out 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet to see how many people we could actually have and effectively manage inside that foyer to the reception desk. And quite honestly, it is 2 people or as many as 2 groups of 2 people each. But those groups of people should be family members or cohort units. So we're talking a married couple, we're talking a familial unit, or a renter and whoever they might be living with, mother and a child, father and a child, those kinds of things. That would be allowable inside the foyer. We will have the ability for that one person or that group of 2 people, cohort familial, to be in the vestibule, 6 feet away from the people going out. We move to this next slide, slide 5. We have to consider the safety of our staff when we are providing that customer service. So as a background, we have done that for our field staff. Site visits, meeting with the public, how to manage that, personal protective equipment, and all of those things were engaged upon weeks and weeks ago for each of the departments as they opened up that part of their typical business operations. Now we're getting ready for the front end, so we must then develop what we're going to do here. So, hand sanitizing station for the patrons coming in the building. We had talked about setting it up outside the main doors. However, the conversation there is that it's super windy. Okay. Super windy, and it's hard to make sure something doesn't blow away. So we're going to move it inside. Safer practices. Engaging the front end workers so that they understand and they can say yes, no, maybe, that this is safe. PPE, violence and harassment, and signage, signage, signage. I've got the signal, folks, so I will speed this up. Number 6 slide. We're going to review all of this stuff on a weekly basis to ensure that we aren't missing things or that we have to revise, and of course to comply with the restrictions and public health orders that might come our way. Slide 7 is how do we re-enter? Moving to slide 8, we have an expectation by our customers that planning and development, public works, taxation and assessment, and solid waste and utilities often get called to the counter. So we have to engage our staff internally, how we're going to manage that. Moving those inquiries to the development reception counter to one section where our people are behind the sneeze guard and the client looking for the information is in front. Meanwhile, at reception, they can still take payments and other inquiries. Moving on to slide 9, physical distancing, excessive staffing to lessen the impact of the staff in the office, integration plan for staff to return to the full capacity. Maybe that's effective scheduling. How do we cover the phone calls? How do we cover the walk-ins? We have to have people from every department in the building now. And what are our IT needs as we move forward? Slide 10 is the plan. Senior leadership and management group will need to set some expectations for those returning workers back into the office. We've got risk and factors that have increased. They're used to hazards at home and not used to hazards in the office anymore. And the changes of how things happen in the office. They need to expect change and embrace that fact. And the mental wellness piece that everybody keeps talking about is really viable. Slide 11. We have our answering service still answering our calls effective June 22nd, if that is the decision being made. We will remove that piece and we will have front end staff answering the phones as normal. And we would be back to regular operations. Please hold, I'll transfer you to whatever department the client is looking for. Slide 12 is that functions and department relaunch planning. So each thing that each one does has to be managed and developed. Campgrounds, as many of council know, we have already done the piece for campgrounds. We're open. June 12th, I believe, is for that new expansion at the boat launch for patrons. In the departments, we've got safe work practices, hazard assessments, PPE, toolbox safe meetings, reviewing safe work practices, how do we interact with ratepayers, telephone inquiries, resumption of extension programs and other programs have to be addressed, like transfer station take it or leave it, like ag services dropping off beaver tails, like agricultural equipment rentals. Those things have to be developed. Moving to slide 15. Back to normal. Provincial relaunch for June 19th, dependent. We are talking June 22nd. Now we need to talk to our people who have been completely remotely working from home and getting them back into the office and returning the equipment and hardware and all other pieces that belong here in the office. We'll be open 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, starting that new normal on June 22nd, if that is the plan. Slide 16, what is normal? Living with COVID-19, we need to remind ourselves very seriously that this is still on the books for us for the next 12 to 18 months, or until there's a vaccine, or until WHO and our Chief Medical Officer of Health says the concern is over. So, relaxing physical distancing, relaxing sanitation, relaxing all of those things is not what we do right now. So we have to consider all of those things every single day, every single moment when we are open. Wellness through that screening questionnaire, hand washing, hand sanitizing, cleaning and sanitizing every space that we touch, physical distancing and PPE. When it comes to meetings, still managing exactly how we are managing them today. Potluck meals as we work towards those, and snacks. No cross-contamination. Cleanup, how do we do that so that it's managed and somebody isn't always left up to it? And how do they do it safely so they're not exposed? The maximum participation of face-to-face people inside a building is still 15. So if we host a meeting, 15, that's it. We can be more than 15 in the office because we're not in a group gathering. Internal meetings, sanitizing procedure, maximum attendees, prefer that combination virtual and present. External, those same pieces, a script for the host. Here is how you can be in this building. Here's our process for sanitizing and whatnot. How are you getting out of the building? Our ERP and first aid kits and all those pieces, and signing in and out. So if we do have an emergency, we can take care of them. Finally, there's that communications piece. Talking to our staff, giving them lots of information how we're going to do this. Number 2 is our stakeholders, mutual aid, and our neighbors, and even our industry partners like Northern Gateway School. And 3rd is our public. Hey, we plan to launch on June 22nd. Here's what it's going to look like. And as we move farther into this, more and more and more educational pieces, lots of signage. We need everybody to understand what our intentions are. They need to be concise, clear, and timely. Open is floor to questions and comments. Or none.
I think I just muted off. So you had a question? Well, that was very thorough, Carol.
Thanks, Joe.
You can't really make that shit exciting. I understand.
I seem to like those kinds of things, sir.
Mr. Chairman, on this whole transfer station, take it or leave it buildings, we're getting tons of calls on when they're going to be opened. How do we want to address that? Do we stick with the plan and open the way we're going to open everything else? There was some talk of maybe not having them anymore. I don't know. I just would like some direction so that I can direct our staff on how we're going to deal with it.
Well, I think not having them anymore would be a mistake, because we'll have it saves us on landfilling a lot of stuff, and there is actually some stuff that gets dropped off there that some people actually take home and use. Quite a bit of it, actually. So I guess if there's, it depends on who you talk to on this whole COVID thing. If the bacteria, you're outside, how long does it last on a wood, all of the rest of it? Do people have to have gloves? I don't know. I guess you'd have to figure out some of that stuff.
So if I could jump,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead,
Reeve.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that we have talked about with regards to the take it or leave it would be similar to how the playgrounds are being managed. So the warning signs that we're not sanitizing this space. You are entering this on caution, and then for our attendants to wear gloves when they're cleaning it up, tidying it up, putting things on shelves and all of those things, removing the stuff that actually can't be reused. So that's easily manageable, and we could probably look at even opening it on Friday the 19th so that the weekends transfer stations could actually take the stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
George?
Yeah, we got a waste commission meeting tomorrow. I'm sure this is going to come up. As far as that take it or leave it, I think we're going to have to open them up because we're going to start finding it all in the ditches anyhow. So,
Yeah. Problem is the waste commission has nothing to do with our transfer stations.
no, but we can make suggestions as to what we figure might have to be done.
Our meeting's not till the 22nd, George.
Tomorrow's Lagoon.
Lagoon's tomorrow.
Oh, Lagoon, how come I got waste commission? Okay, apologize.
All right, thank you.
All right, George.
Okay, apologize.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nick?
Question in regards to response on collection of costs. Are we tracking all the costs that are related to the COVID-19 and the changes and the implementations that we're doing?
Yes, we are.
No. Okay.
Trista?
I think it's important to note that we are tracking. We don't know what kind of compensation we're going to get back.
That's kind of my concern. As far as understanding, protecting staff and everything else, an obligation is our responsibility. As far as health, that's my responsibility. It's personal responsibility. So when we start talking about take it and leave it and so on and so forth, we can put the signs up and literally say that it's not being sanitized or whatever, but it's my responsibility to take care of my health, not the government's or World Health Organization. So.
And that was the thought process that came about with the playgrounds and reopening them. The individual has the responsibility. So I think, Councillor Gellert, you're right, that in regards to those, the signage is all that's needed. It is up to the individuals using them.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Tristan.
Anyway, Joe, did you get some direction out of that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, that's good. We know where we're heading with that, and it looks like you've got everything under control, so to say. So I guess we'll discuss it maybe. I don't know, we want to discuss it again next week and see if there's any changes at our council meeting. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So we'll throw it back on the agenda for a brief discussion.
Certainly, far briefer than today was.
Yeah, well, today was the whole thing, right? So now it's updates. So totally understandable.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. I think the thing is that based on the next 3 weeks, it's imperative that we're kept up to speed of what's happening. We're going to get questions, and we're going to get going to have to answer them from our ratepayers. So I agree.
Well, I haven't had one ratepayer call me and say keep it closed.
True. No,
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot more wonder why they can't get
Get it opened.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you, Carol.
Absolutely.
Can I get a motion to accept that for information? Lloyd? Against? Okay, carried. Okay. Corporate services, appointment of assessment and review board members.
Hi, Reeve Blakeman. I believe, Stacy, I believe you're on the line. Are you going to speak to this matter? It's a pretty straightforward item.
Yep. I
Thank
am
you.
here. No problem. So this is on the agenda here today as well. Near the bottom, we do have a new assessment review board bylaw. But this one is put here because, as you know, we are moving with CRASC, which is going to take our assessment review board out of house for Lac St. Anne County. This year will be the first year that we engage CRASC. And in so doing, we need to appoint all of the new members that come with that. They are listed in the recommendation, as well as the 4 members that we do have appointed or need appointed for assessment review board purposes, because our contracts that we had with the other municipalities where we were doing the regional assessment review board, when we gave notice to be fair and to comply with the legislation and timeframes, it would have been too tight for them to try and find their own assessment review board and have it trained and everything else in the works. So this year we are going to provide those services to the regional partners that we were aligned with. And so to do that, we need to also have our 4 members assigned. It's pretty straightforward to comply with the changes in the MGA to do with assessment review boards, we do need to appoint the chairman as well. So you will see in the recommendation there are 2 chairmans appointed. One would be for the CRASC section and one would be for our regular board. So Mr. Raymond Ralph and Miss Gina Fowler. So we would just need to have that also included in the motion, please.
I got a question about this, and this is a capital region we're talking about, right? Assessment services. Who's do we have anybody that's monitoring that's going to be able to monitor what they're doing, how they're making decisions?
Well, they are trained provincially just like our members are.
Yeah, I know, but they're all from the capital region, and that scares the living hell out of me. That's the problem, Stace.
Well, some of the members, they do, like, as far as the members that are appointed, there are some from neighboring, I believe, Parkland. They appoint them that are familiar with the area, is my understanding. But I can definitely get, once we see our contract, again, the whole process with CRASC is that they, after council motion is made and we have the approval to proceed, it's sent into the capital region and they then host their board meeting where they approve or deny. And once they approve, which they did, and it was held on April 27th, they send it into municipal affairs, and then municipal affairs will send out ministerial approval once it's gone through. So we haven't received that ministerial approval yet just because of the delay with COVID and everything else, but they don't anticipate that there will be an issue. So, I mean, it's very methodical and very legislated, and all of the training is done regardless of whether you are in rural Alberta or urban, Alberta. The training is all done by the province.
Well, I sat in about 10 days of that. I understand it, but
I understand as well. So
just whenever we take stuff and we give it to our urban neighbors, it seems like, and that's what I consider the capital region, I just shake a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, this is new, and this will be, like I said, the first year that we engage in it. We'll see how it goes, judging by the complaints that are already in motion. We will, be handling them through that. There is still the process where the complaints are received at the county office, so it's not 100% dislocated from the office. So myself and Trinity are trained as clerks, so we will be the ones who, when the complaints come in, we have to review them. Of course, the encouragement is to speak to the assessment department prior to proceeding. I mean, you want to try and work with them. So as the complaints come forward, the official complaints come forward, they will be put through to the assessment department for review and to try and manage or negotiate or see what they can do to change it. That's just your general process as is.
Okay. Well. So you want a motion today to appoint these fine people?
Yes, sir. If you could, that would be fantastic.
Well, I can't, but Lloyd can. Okay. Against? Carried. Yeah, we can do that now. Now you need a motion to appoint the 2 chairmen.
Correct.
What's that? It's
Yes.
on there? It's part of that last motion, Cindy? Is that what you're...
Yes.
One motion. Okay, so it's all good. All right. I think that is that it then?
Yep, that's it for this one.
Okay. All right, assessment for 2020 taxes.
Hi, Mr. Reeve. I believe Rob Smythe, the Taxation and Assessment Manager, is going to be speaking with us.
He's on his way. Okay, well, we'll take a 5-minute break while he gets here. Okay, is everybody back online? Sorry about that long 5 minutes, but we're having some technical difficulties, which I think we got straightened out now. Okay, Rob, I think it was a request that you come in and have a little chat with us there last week. And it's just to see how things are going out there, and then whatever else you want to talk about. And then I think, Mike, you had something that we talked about the other day we want to bring up, right? Morton. Okay. I can bring it up without him. But I guess one of the things.
I hear you. Joe.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I got you.
Okay.
You bet.
So, Rob, I think one of the things we wanted to chat about is just that, because we're getting lots of calls on the higher assessment, and is it just because the market changed, or is it because we haven't, nobody'd been out and had a look, or a little bit of everything?
I think it's probably a little bit of everything. You know, a lot of the issues that people are bringing forward are flooding issues and stuff like that. So when I see that, I do my best to address it. And then there's, you know, it's the higher value properties that went up. So those properties are also reviewed, and some of them in as I'm doing the review, I think there's room to be moved on them and whatnot. So we make those adjustments as I can and go forward from there. I'm sorry, did everybody hear that okay?
Yep.
So, yeah. But yeah, there's been a lot of phone calls. We're inundated. There's no keeping up with them at the volume that we're getting, and they haven't appeared to have died down as of yet, but hopefully they will soon.
Mike Morton, Mike Primo was saying something about if we want to extend the deadline, it's a ministerial order. You're going to have to answer that, Mike.
Yeah, we got a response here. I just got to find it from our legal counsel. Based on legislation, the way assessment is at 60 days from the mailing of our tax notices. If they want to, if we want to extend the deadline, it would be through a ministerial order that we request the minister to provide. And Dana at RMRF would help with that. I'm just trying to pull up the email here. But yes, it's not something we can just put in place right now by motion. So it would be a ministerial order.
Okay. But I think, well, I honestly think it's something we should do. I think we need some more time with everything that's going on in the world, and just we can always use, hate to say it, you can always use the COVID as one of the reasons, but it is one of the reasons. And obviously, I think it would take it's going to be better for our assessment department and better for everybody if they actually get a chance to talk to Rob's team and get let them actually investigate, spend a little bit of time and give them an answer that's not, I don't care whether they like it or don't like the answer, but it's something that a person has had a chance to look at. And I think they've had a chance to talk to you and you've had a chance to talk to them. And right now, I don't think you're going to be rushed to get it done all in time.
Yes, we're getting to the point where, I mean, right now we're still 6 weeks away from our deadline, but with this volume of the calls, we're getting to the point where we probably will need to start telling people, we understand you have a concern, but because of the volume, you should file your appeal now so you don't lose the right to get any changes that are appropriate to your property. But we're not at that point yet, but if the volume of calls doesn't die down soon, that's where we're going to be. I'm already booking inspections to the end of this month. So we are, we're were flooded. So it may very well be a benefit to us at the end if we could extend that deadline, as you had said, because I certainly would prefer to talk to them and address any issues without having to go in front of a board and whatnot. So that more time would be appreciated.
Well, I think it's deserving of you and your staff and of the ratepayers. I think both deserve that opportunity. That's my own thoughts. I don't know. What do you guys think? Lloyd?
I definitely agree. I think it's something that we should look at, and it would be a win-win for everybody.
George?
Well, I definitely agree also, but that being said, for me, I'm getting the understanding of how this assessment works and stuff. There might be some that are listening that don't. Can you explain how the assessment process works and how you basically come up with your numbers and how equated you got to be within 5% or something of the market value? Can you just explain that so people understand that are listening?
Yes. So I'm try to keep this fairly condensed, but the assessed value that people have received is an estimate of what their property would be worth if they were to sell it on the market as of July 1st of 2019. So that value that they got today is already a year old. The sales that we used to establish that value for improved properties happened between July 1st of 2018 and September 30th of 2019. Now that's for the improved properties. For the vacant properties, we used 3 years of sales. So that's from July 1st of 2016 to September 30th of 2019. I know it's a little disconnect, but for the vacant sales, we used a longer time frame. The assessment is supposed to be a reasonable explanation or a reasonable estimate of value. That value was established using sales of comparable properties. So if our information is relatively correct, then the sales should reflect a reasonable value. There is some play. We're supposed to be within, from the legislation says that the median value of that property is supposed to, of those sales are supposed to be within 5% of basically the average. So 5% up or 5% down. That is approved by the government that we met those standards. The government has to say yay or nay, you have met all of the standards that we require for your assessment. And we did pass that, what do I want to call it? We passed that audit. The government came back and said, you've met all of our standards. The sales that you used are reasonable, and so on and so forth. So we do have government audits that we have to pass with that. And we did do that. And we also, the sales that we used are a year old at minimum, up to 2 years old for improved properties. So one of the biggest issues that come to me and to my attention is, well, what's happening now? And the sales that we used are not reflective of what is happening now. You know, the economy is, this is unprecedented times with COVID-19 and everything that's happened. So the sales that will be used for next year's assessment will reflect what's going on now. The sales that are out there and the assessment they have, this was not part of the deal. The values are not reflective of what's happening today. I don't know if I've made that clear or made things worse or what, but it is a valuation that is a year old. So, and the sales are a year old.
I think sometimes people fail to realize when you look at it that, like I've had complaints about going up $800, but I think it's not only the property tax goes up, but your school tax goes up, your policing tax, and your other taxes all increase to come up with that $800. It's not all property tax. Okay, thanks.
That's very true. And quite often, everything increases with the assessed value. So, you know, the one, it's hand in hand. The one goes up with the other, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just a comment in regards to the, how would you say, if you want to appeal your assessment, there's a $50 cost to initiate an appeal. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Now, the way it works is that $50 is required when you appeal your property. That $50 must be included with the completed form. And the key thing about that form is it has to be in the clerk's hand by 4:30 on the 20th of July. It's not good enough if it's in the mail. It has to be in the clerk's hand. So if anybody's listening, send it in at least a week early or earlier. You don't have to wait till the 20th. But to lose out because it's in the mail or it got lost in the mail, that would be pretty hard for somebody to swallow. The other thing about the $50 fee is it is refundable if they withdraw their appeal before it goes in front of the board. And it is refunded to them if they go in front of the board and the board agrees with their position and reduces their assessment. So that $50 is not just you pay it and it disappears. You will get it refunded in the majority of time.
Lauren and George.
The understanding is you get the $50 as long as you show up. You put your $50 up, and it's refundable, whether you win or you lose.
My understanding of it is that it's refundable if you win. Now, I can take the time to look at the legislation that says one way or the other, but I believe it also says that on the back. No, I shouldn't say that because I'm not sure. I'm not going to go there.
I'm pretty sure that was what when it came into play, we put that number in there, and maybe Mike's listening here, Mr. Primo, that's refundable, win, lose, or draw, as long as you show. It was that impetus, that number was okay, they want to go to an assessment appeal board, at least show up, because the reason we put it in is if you don't show up, you don't get the money. If you show up, you get it back, win, lose, or draw. That was the intent of that legislation. And I think Lloyd may be the only one here, but that's my understanding of that legislation.
Yeah, I think, Rob, Mr. Olswick's right, actually. Because we did that before. And it was just because we had so many appeals, and then we'd set up an appeal board and all the hearings, and then we'd sit there all day and nobody would show up, and we had a board paying for a board for, you know, I think there was 4 of us that sat on it at that time, and you're paying per diems for 4 people and your secretary, and nobody would walk in the door. So,
okay.
But it's $50. We don't need to stop the world because it's $50, but it's
just the clarity.
We make sure that that's clear. Yeah, clear.
Yeah.
Okay, back on my earlier discussion on this is extending the timeline, the appeal timeline, which would give you more time. George?
Just one thing. I mean, ideally, that's what we have to do. We got to extend the ministerial order if we can do it. But ideally, the best deal for the ratepayer would to try getting a hold of you first before the appeal, if that's at all possible, right?
Yes, it's quite often this is something that I'm more than willing to deal with without having to go through with the appeal process or anything like that. However, it's due to the volume of calls that we're experiencing today that I'm pushing people towards appeal. Let's not lose your right to get a correct and fair assessment. And then we'll deal with the rest of it afterwards when we have a little bit more time.
Yeah, do we need a motion to get them to go? Okay. I've only heard from a couple of you. What's the? And how long would we ask for? A month? Our tax deadlines or our tax payments, we extended till August 1st. No, September 1st.
First. If we're going to ask for the extension, maybe ask for another 60 days. That would be 2 months, and
September 20th.
That would be September 20th. Yes. If we're going to ask for the extension, let's ask for 60 days and see what happens.
Okay, George, you're going to put that in a motion? You got that? All right. Against?
I just need clarification. So in this motion, if we're asking for 60 days, so it's only the people that are going into an appeal that they would be granted that 60 days because they wouldn't have to pay, because normally even with an appeal, you pay your taxes and we'll hear the appeal and that'll be corrected after the fact. But if we're saying the 60 days, that means that they don't have to pay. We're granting that appeal.
Oh, no, not even close.
No.
We're granting them it's no different than they're supposed to pay by July 1st, but the appellate appeal date is July 20th.
Correct.
They still have to pay their taxes.
I mean, just for confusion, like we've extended the ability for people to extend non-payment till September 1st. Let's don't get confused with the appeal process, because we're going to have two messages going out. If you're appealing, you still want you to pay your taxes and go through the process if you can.
Yes.
But and then all of a sudden they're going to be reading the other portion is if you choose, you don't have to. We're giving you tax forgiveness for 2 months till September 1st. So we have to be really careful on how you're communicating this, because this is confusing.
To whom?
Okay. How about if I make the motion that the tax is still got to be paid by September 1st without the penalty? The appeal process to give Robin the time, his staff time to check some of these assessments, we want that extended till September the 20th. Taxes are still due when taxes are due without penalization with September 1. Is that clarified any? I mean, they still have to pay the taxes before they can appeal, right? Or at least they got.
I don't think we have to worry about our motion as much as how we advertise it. We have to see if we can do that first. I'm sure that you guys can figure out how to advertise that to clarify that it's just for appealing.
Yes, we could work with Stacy and their I believe the gentleman's name is Sean, to make sure that it's clear that the deadline for filing an appeal of what your assessment is has been extended by 60 days to the 20th of September or something thereabouts. But at the end of the day, yes, we will make sure that it's absolutely clear. You need to pay your taxes on time without penalty, but you have more time to deal with the assessment portion of it.
But we're still.
Oh, you just said it.
Well, what I don't understand that every year it's exactly the same, Lauren.
Correct, except this year we've extended it that we anybody that can't pay their taxes or comes up with anything to say that I don't have to pay my taxes till September 1. And we've granted that already. We've made that extension. So by saying this is not right, because there is no penalty. Their penalty comes at September 1.
Lloyd.
I hate to say it, but I have to sort of agree with Lauren. So a solution to this is, do we look at extending the penalty free? If we're going to go to extending the appeal process to the 20th, do we extend the penalty free by by 30 days and go to the end of September? Or does that confuse it further? Like it costs us another $35,000 to delay the tax free period. But if we're going to actually provide a meaningful appeal date, deadline / whatever to the September 20th, does it make sense extending our penalty free period, or is that another issue?
Why don't we just go to September 1st for the appeal deadline?
I guess I've got a question. When you take a look at it from a perspective of what's existing, June 30th is usually our tax deadline. We have till July 20th for the appeal. If we take it and we just move it 2 months down, we wind up to have August 30th as the tax deadline with September 20th as the appeal.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble figuring out why it's so confusing. Although I had some people that called and we had to explain that if they read the other side of their page 2 of their tax notice, they found out that we give them 2 months longer.
Ignore my comments because Nick makes a good point. We're at September 1st now already, right? For tax-free penalty. So leave it as is and change it to the 20th, and we're following the same whatever distances or
appeal
timelines.
Yeah, and just that make sure we advertise it right. And I'm sure that Sean and Stacy can make sure that happens. I'm sure. Okay. We got a motion on the floor. Against? Okay. Carried. Mike, you'll have to get that. Mike, you'll have to get that. It was George made it. Sorry. Huh? Okay, Mr. Martin, Mr. Primo, there you go. Okay, medical clinic plaza purchase.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. This has been discussed a few times with you guys as well. Myself and Mr. Rob Seidel have discussed with what we're looking at doing for the clinic, the expansion in Unit 3, which is in design right now. We've talked about having the ability to own our, I guess, the future to ensure that we control what happens within the that area. And so what is here is the motion asking for approval to purchase the clinic at the set fee that is within the lease of $680,000. And the borrowing bylaw is also attached. A media release is the next agenda item to speak to this. But basically it protects our future, and whatever happens with the clinic as far as ownership, that's another discussion for another day. But with the lease payments coming in, they should be able to continue to pay off the borrowing, 5-year term borrowing for $700,000.
Mike, I have a question in regards to the borrowing bylaw. If there is another community that would like to get interested, or was interested in supporting the purchase of the building, would they be able to come in as a partner on a percentage basis or whatever, you know?
Yes.
They
Not
could.
through the borrowing bylaw, but yes.
They could after
Yeah.
the fact.
Yes,
And that
through
could
an agreement between the county and
And this is the
Yeah.
town of Onaway, yes.
Yeah. And we did receive approval from the town to proceed with the purchase.
Okay. We make the motion?
Well, do we want a motion or do we just want to go to the bylaw? Motion to
Motion to
purchase
approve
first?
it. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I'll make
Nick?
that motion.
Against? Okay. Now you want the bylaw?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we'll get there. I believe it's on the list.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
if
down
we
to
go
the
to
bottom.
if we go to the media release, this was prepared by our a lawyer that we've been discussing with, Rob Seidel. And so if you guys want to have a read, this will help the public understand the process and the thought process that we have with the purchase.
Yeah.
I read it a couple of times last night. It's,
Yeah. Steve?
Yes, Mike, in regards to this debenture, is it transferable? Let's say Joe Blow decides to buy it. Is that loan transferable to a purchaser down the road?
No, the Capital Finance Authority does not loan to individuals. And so if we sold it, for example, the building, they would pay out, we'd pay the loan off and they'd have their own mortgage with, or cash, I guess, on hand, whatever they had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, do we, does everybody like that media release? So do we need a motion to put it out?
I'll do it again.
Okay,
For somebody else.
Nick? Okay.
No,
Oh,
one
sorry.
question here.
For the, it said the addition of a physician. My understanding from the chief medical officer that that area can support 3 physicians. So when he says a physician, you know, we should say physicians. It's just a word.
True enough.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Second paragraph, Lauren? Okay, yeah, I see an additional position, yeah.
He didn't say A, he said and. Now I cleaned my glasses, I can see up there to read it. Okay, we still got a motion on the floor with that change, but that's just a typo kind of thing. Okay. Against? Okay. Bylaws and policies, B1. Who's running with this one?
Yeah.
Mr. Morton?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Reeve. So the recommended action is county rescind the policy 236-6 investments, further approves policy 03050-015 investments as presented, and directs administration to incorporate the new policy into the municipal government's documents. So the summary as part of the ongoing policy review, 236-6 investments was last reviewed in 2000 and therefore needs updating. There are not many changes actually in the content to the policy itself. Section 250 of the Municipal Government Act puts restrictions on the types of investments that municipalities may acquire. The policy outlines responsibilities for who is authorized to acquire and dispose of investments, which primarily is the Chief Administrative Officer anyway, with the delegation if necessary, as well as the reporting section, including information requirements to meet the reporting. It also emphasizes the need in safeguarding the assets, but preserving liquidity to meet cash flow needs. So in other words, we're not just padding a bank account to make it investments, where actually our first obligation is to make sure that expenses are paid. So the recommended action is to accept the policy as presented.
Makes sense to me. We'll just probably need a motion.
Yeah, please. If you're good with that.
I think Lloyd's good with it. He's just
trying to unmute so you can hear me. Yes, I will move to accept the new policy as amended.
Okay, against? Okay, carried.
Thank you.
Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the ICF for the Summer Village of Belquinton and Lac St. Anne County. We are recommending that the agreement be approved as presented. It follows a similar template to the other Summer Village ICFs. And we do have consent from their council in its current form.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the Steve. Got to make sure everybody's here today.
I so approve the ICF for Belquinton.
For the county. Okay, the agreement. Perfect. Against? Okay. Carried. Birch Cove.
So similar to the last one, this is the ICF for the Summer Village of Birch Cove and Lac St. Anne County, and the similar format for the Summer Villages. It outlines all the existing agreements and uses that we share to collaborate. We are recommending that it be approved as presented.
Nick. Okay. Against? Okay, there you go. Carried. Are we getting them all? How are we getting? Must be just about done, eh? With the ICFs?
So we have, to my recollection, the Barhead County one we're still working on, but we've extended that over a year with permission of the minister. And the town of Mayerthorpe one is still plugging away, to my understanding.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, my friend. I'm pretty sure we signed something. Maybe that was just the dream that I had. Anyway. Okay. Onaway Regional Medical Clinic building borrowing bylaw. There we go.
So that's Mike Morton speaking. So the recommended action is to give all three readings to bylaw 22-2020 to borrow up to a maximum of $700,000, not to exceed the 5 years for the Onaway Regional Medical Clinic. The short-term borrowing is for 5 years, and there's an error in the request for decision. It should be for the acquisition of the Onaway Regional Medical Clinic building within the town of Onaway, not for repairs. Repayment of the short-term borrowing bylaw will come from general municipal property taxation. As per Section 257 of the Municipal Government Act, the expenditure for capital property must be included in the budget, which was approved in 2020 on April 23rd, 2020. A borrowing bylaw of 5 years, which it is does not have to be advertised. And the estimated annual payments will be $144,408.02, according to the loan calculator done on May 27th. And so if we could get all three readings, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Next, first reading. Against. Second reading. George. Against. Unanimous consent. Lauren. Against. Third reading. Lloyd. Against. Carried. There you go. Now, bylaw. 23-2020 Assessment Review Board bylaw.
So this is just the follow-up of from the previous agenda item that was approved, the motion to accept all the members. This is a bylaw for the county as presented, and recommended action is all three readings for this bylaw.
You bet. Okay, need first reading. Steve. Against. Carried. Second reading. Ross. Against. Carried. Unanimous consent. Lloyd. Against. Carried. Third reading. Lauren. Against. Carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to go into closed session?
Also move.
Okay. Nick, against. Okay, carried.